welcome to More Together with School District 25, where each week we'll take a deeper dive into some of the issues, accomplishments, news, and current events happening around our school communities. This is a chance for listeners to get to know the school district and learn more about the educational issues you care about the most. I'm Courtney Fisher, and joining me today is Chief of the Pocatello Police Department, Roger Schei. Chief Schei, thank you so much for joining me today. I know how busy you are.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to be discussing the risk of fentanyl overdose deaths in school-aged youth. This is a topic that I know you are passionate about, and we share an eagerness to communicate what is potentially life-saving information to our school district families. As we head into summer, which is coming up really soon, my goal with this conversation is to provide guidance for parents and schools as we currently experience an increase of this deadly drug circulating throughout our community.
Yeah, so I'm in the governor's task force for this. It was an honor to be selected. I'm on it with Carrie and Donahue from Canyon County and Colonel Wills from Idaho State Police. So we're the law enforcement end of things.
Right.
So to be part of that and have that much voice for the state is pretty big for our area. So I was humbled by that. And as we tackle this program and we look at the different perspectives of how to combat this. So those are.
And the governor just brought his task force here to our community for this region. And so that was a great meeting and I think really productive way to start the conversation. So I want to start with the basics for our listeners. Like me as a parent, like maybe everybody doesn't even know what fentanyl is. So can you just provide us with a basic definition of what we're looking at here?
Yeah. So when you look at fentanyl, it's a powerful synthetic opioid. It's similar to morphine, but it's a 50 to 100 times more potent. It's in a prescription form if it's prescribed for pain. So a lot of illegal fentanyl is sold in many different forms: powder, we've seen liquid, sprays, pills, and then now we're seeing it mixed into different drugs. We have a case where the person that was selling marijuana told us that there was fentanyl mixed in with the marijuana, but we have also tested like some of the methamphetamine and heroin, and we've seen it mixed with that. You know, when it's prescribed in the way it's supposed to be used, it's safe. When it's used under the care of a doctor, when it's prescribed and the doses are followed as they are needed, and it's good for what it does, but it's not good when it's not under the care of a doctor or it's not regulated.
Right. And I think that's a really important distinction to make here, that there is a use for it in a prescribed setting working with a physician, right?
Correct.
So what are you seeing, and can you help us understand why fentanyl is currently a threat to the youth in our community? And this is kind of a two-part question, but what are you seeing locally that is causing so much concern? And what does our community's youth need to know about fentanyl?
Yeah, so 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal to an adult. So when you start looking at the youth, and you know they're not fully developed, fully grown, they may be smaller, that dose of fentanyl is a lot easier for them to overdose, cause an adverse reaction, even death. So we got to really pay attention to that because it's just a small amount. Locally, fentanyl it looks like it's an over-the-counter pill. So a lot of times that you have it and it's in a pill form, they'll just think it's a pill. But the problem with looking at it that way is you don't know what you're taking.
Right.
And so in its simplest form, I mean, to give the listeners kind of a image in their head, it's like taking a Ninja blender and taking the fentanyl, putting it in the Ninja blender with a bunch of binders. And those binders could be anything. It could be aspirin, it could be ibuprofen, it could be other drugs, it could be other over-the-counter stuff, and then blending it up, pouring that mixture out on the table, and then putting it into a pill press. So think about this. Think about if you had a bunch of flour, like 10 cups of flour, and you sprinkled in some red flakes, and then you mixed it up in that blender, and then you poured it on the table. Well, some of that stuff's going to have a few more red flakes than others. And that's what we're seeing from the DEA is that when they tested the pills, is about 27 to 30% of the pills have a lethal dose in them. So you have a better chance of playing Russian roulette with a gun than you do with taking fentanyl pills. That is the reality of how dangerous this is.
Right. I can tell you as a parent that my heart just nearly stopped when that community bulletin came out. It's one of my biggest fears to have some youth in our community that's not knowing that thinks they might be doing one thing and inadvertently overdose on something like this. That's a real fear, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is, too, is that like a lot of people will think, well, it's just weed. But you don't know what's mixed in that now. That's the danger. Or it's just, even with vape. I mean, if we're seeing in liquid form, we're seeing crazy things in vapes. And when it's mixed with certain things, if you take a certain hit off of a drug, so to say, then that could be a lethal dose and cause to overdose. There was a case I know out of, I believe it was Florida, where there was some college students who thought they were just taking ecstasy, which is an illegal drug and potent by itself, but it had fentanyl in it, and all 5 ended up in the hospital with an overdose. So I guess I'll save that for a little bit later around the kitchen table kind of conversation that you have with your kids. But, Kylie Gibson from KPVI just did a series, and I kind of stole her quote for the governor's task force of one pill can kill.
Right.
So.
Are you seeing it in liquid form also?
Yes.
So as schools get close to heading into summer, what are the warning signs that parents should be looking for and paying attention to?
Sudden changes in behavior. I would say get to know your kids. I've got 3 kids. I know what's normal for them. I know what's not normal for them. And then ask some earnest questions. I think that's the most important thing you can do with your kids is know them, know what's normal for them, know what's abnormal for them. Right. And if something's a little bit out of the abnormal, ask some earnest questions.
What kinds of questions would you ask your own kids?
Like, hey, any changes in their behavior, like the why. So, I'm always pulling the thread on the why. So whether it's with my kids or with, the employees that I work with, and something happens, I pull the thread on the why and try to figure it out. So if it's something in their behavior, I might ask, hey, who are you hanging out with? Like, what websites are they going to? Right? That's so huge. Now, when I was growing up, I'm a kid of the 80s, so I didn't have a cell phone. But everybody has cell phones now.
Right.
So when you look at the cell phone, I could pick up someone's cell phone and probably tell you everything about that person. So for parents, I'd say pay attention to your kids' social media. Know what sites they're visiting, what apps they have on their phone, because there's apps out there. It's like, hey, have you heard of this app? And I'm like, no.
Right. And it's constantly changing, isn't it?
Yeah, new things are always popping up, new ways for them to communicate. They don't text. They go on, either like Slack or whatever. WhatsApp. Yeah, that's another one. Right. Yeah. I actually know what that one is. So.
Right, but they're always popping up new, right?
Yeah, and they're figuring out ways to hide it. They'll chat within a game. Like they'll be playing a game, whether it's on their Xbox or PlayStation. There's a chat box there. They can have conversations there too. So I'd say pay attention to what your kids are interested in, what their hobbies are, and who they're hanging out with. Who are they spending their time with when they're not at home? And you don't have to be overly nosy. I mean, you just be involved with what your kids are doing. Right, because
there's that fine balance, right? And especially the age of the kids that we're talking about. They start to gain a little bit of independence and they want a little bit of more privacy. But, you brought up the kitchen table issue, and this is what I would call a kitchen table issue. Yeah. And these are the conversations that should be happening frequently.
Yes.
Around, the places we gather as families, whether that's sitting together at dinner. My family, we stand around our kitchen island rather than sit down, or sure. Driving to school school or to soccer practice. So help those listening understand a little bit about how you think we should be initiating this dialogue with our children, and give us some guidance. What should those conversations look like that? And you've touched a little bit on that, but let's go a little further.
So I would say before I go there, I'd like to go back to question 3 and just give them a few more pointers for that.
Okay.
So if you're looking at the fentanyl aspect, extreme happiness could be like if your kid's naturally normally happy, then, but if it's just extreme happiness, drowsiness, nausea, confusion, constipation, sedation, any sign of addiction, respiratory depression or arrest, or if they just go unconscious, that's obviously going to be a sign. But those are things like as you're having these conversations around the kitchen table for you to pick up on.
To pay attention to.
Yeah.
Okay. Some warning signs.
And some common language. We talked about this at the governor's task force, the term dirty 30. If a parent hears that term, man, you should have some red flags going up. The hair on the back of your neck should stand up, and you should be paying attention to that term.
Tell us why. What is dirty 30?
So what that is remember when I talked about the Ninja blender?
Right.
That's essentially how they make these pills. Now, not all these pills are going to have this telltale sign, but a lot of them will. They're blue. They have a 30 stamped on them and an M stamped on the other side. So, and what they are is they're fentanyl mixed with those binders, and we don't know what those binders are. It's whatever the person making those pills has laying around their house. So it could be another medication, over the counter, illegal. Could be flour. It could be sugar. It could be whatever that they throw into that blender to make that substance. So if you hear that term, that's what that is. However, we did find some fentanyl pills that were in a Xanax bottle that were labeled as Xanax, but they weren't Xanax.
And were they also that blue?
No.
With the label? No. So
No.
you're seeing it in all different kinds of forms, and that's what makes it really difficult for parents to track on, right?
Yeah, but if that's the predominant is with the dirty 30 is what we're seeing is the blue pill. That seems to be the predominant. But what I'm telling people is just don't be so dialed in on that they don't miss something else.
Okay.
And the conversation should also be around the kitchen tables like, hey, man, if you're at school and some kid is taking a pill or offers you a pill, or you're getting ready to take a test and it's like, hey, I need an Adderall to stay focused, you shouldn't be doing, don't buy anything because you don't know what it is.
Right.
And so that would be the conversation I'd be having with my kids. You talked about what that would be one. It's like if it's not prescribed by a doctor and it's not coming out of the bottle that you have, that you know that you have control over, don't take it.
Right. And those are the exact conversations. I have a senior in high school and a ninth grader, and we've had those conversations at our house to say, don't take anything. If you know friends, we know kids experiment as they go, and we encourage them not to. But I've told my kids, you might save somebody's life by sharing this information with them, and really talking to your peers about paying really close attention to what people are giving them and what they're ingesting. Yeah. So I want to share some things. Scratch that. So as a follow-up to that kitchen table question, and I touched on it a little bit, but what would you recommend those conversations between peer-to-peer? Because sometimes those are the most impactful conversations.
So I said this in this press conference I had in reference to the recent events here, and I challenged our community to go out and build relationships with people. I think that I firmly believe that if you interact with any other human being in this world, then you're a leader. And the number one thing a leader can do is build relationships with people. So as peer-to-peer, build relationships with people. Parent-to-peer, build relationships with your children, with your family, uncles and aunts and nieces, and build those relationships so that when they come to talk to you or they ask you questions, that you can have those conversations with them, that you just don't shut them down or you ignore them. Because a lot of times if you have a bad relationship, your child's not going to come up and say, I'm having a bad day. this happened at school. My friend Johnny had a pill, and he sold it to Fred. They're not gonna have those conversations if you have a bad relationship.
Right.
So, and what does that often take to build those relationships is for us to be humble and have that humility to build those relationships, because that's hard sometimes. It's hard sometimes when you're struggling with a family member, because they're the ones that are closest to us, that sometimes we rub each other the wrong way sometimes.
Right.
So
That's so true.
yeah.
I think that's one of the things, where schools can be really effective in helping combat this too. Our school district in particular, we really focus on relationships. Our administrators, our teachers they build phenomenal relationships with our learners. And so giving them the tools and the guidance also to help identify some of these issues too, because they can help pinpoint that. But I want to share with you just some of the things that we've done as a district so far, and then maybe ask you a little bit about, how we can extend this even further. When we received that community bulletin, the alert about this potential threat to youth and overdose, we immediately shared that with our administrators. We put it on our Facebook page so parents would be aware. But what else can we be doing as a school district, and also as parents and community members, the people we fellowship with, community organizations? How can we partner with the Pocatello Police Department, the City of Pocatello, and this governor's task force to help combat this issue?
So I've had a lot of conversations with Mayor Blatt about this, and he's very supportive of doing this. I don't like letting the grass grow under my feet, and I kind of like us to lead the way in Pocatello.
Right.
So before even probably the governor's task force comes down with some recommendations, I can see that happening here in Pocatello. I've already had conversations with Rex Force. I'll tell you the other person who's big into partnerships, and I'd like to thank him, as President Kevin Satterley from Idaho State University. He's offered his expertise from people from the College of Pharmacy up at Idaho State University, and to be part of this conversation and get those experts that know what they're talking about
Right.
in the conversation, and get their perspective of some of the things that they can do. So it's going to be a partnership with Idaho State University School District 25, the multi-faith group here in Pocatello, the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary. It's going to be a multifaceted group that we're going to go out, do some town hall meetings, do some education, and really, if the parents are plugged in of what's going on in their kids' lives and paying attention, building those strong relationships, that opens the door to ask those earnest questions that I talked about earlier.
Right, and I think that's where the school district can really come into, is that direct line of communication with our learners, with our parents. So anything, we're all in, and it's one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation with you and really get this, bring this to the forefront of people's minds and conversations right now.
Yeah, thank you, because you didn't let the grass grow underneath you either.
No, I'm just you. I don't let
the
grass grow under my feet either. And really, the minute that bulletin came out, I approached the superintendent and said, this podcast is designed for this specific issue. It gives us a little bit longer format than just a Facebook post or an email blast, infinite campus message to our parents. But let's really kind of dive in. Keep it brief so people will listen, but at the same time, educate people about what's really going on and the signs to look for, and give people the tools, not just talk about the issue, but let's provide the guidance that people need to make this an impactful effort.
Yeah, I'm done talking. Let's take some action. Right?
I know. Yeah. I heard you at the meeting, and I'm right there with you. So anything we can do. Before we close, is there anything else that you would like to add or emphasize from our conversation today?
I just think that people need to take this seriously. It's going to be something that continues to grow as it walks right across our border every day. And if it's not coming from one way, it would find a way, as long as there's a demand for it. So we need, as a community, we need to focus on this, and obviously on the enforcement end, we're gonna charge people, but I don't think we can arrest our way out of this problem.
Right.
It's going to take this collaborative effort. So thank you for having me on. Thank you for not letting the grass grow underneath your feet. So I appreciate that. And it's going to take this partnership. And we have a strong relationship with School District 25 with our school resource officer program. And
Right.
Doug Howell, I've known Doug for a long time when he was a principal over at Alameda and probably even before then. So those strong relationships, they do pay off.
Right.
And if you, as a community, if you see something, say something. If you think something's not right, give us a call. Ask us some questions down at the police department. 100%. I'd rather err on the side of caution than not say, well, I could have done something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we feel the same way.
Yeah.
So, we partner on many things before. We will partner on many things
Yep.
down the road. And this one just happens to be really critical and important right now. So yeah, let's work together and make something happen to protect the people in our community.
And especially the kids, that mission alignment is huge for us. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've been listening to More Together with School District 25 with today's guest, Pocatello Police Chief Roger Schei. Chief, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know you're so busy. Want to share our best wishes to your officers who were involved in the shooting incident last week. And just, we're all so happy that they're out of the hospital healing at home with their families. And just thank you for all you do for this community to serve and protect.
Yeah, we're blessed to live where we live. Pocatello is a good place to live.
It sure
so
is.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. Our mission at School District 25 is to think more, learn more, and be more together. If you enjoy this podcast, remember, check us out every Friday with a new episode available on our YouTube channel. And if you have an issue you'd like to hear more about, send your ideas or questions to communications@sd25.us.